Steam Deck has celebrated its third birthday on February 25th, considering Valve said it would take them about at least a few years to release a more powerful model, as they want a quote-unquote true generational leap, as they say. Do you think 2025 is the year this new hardware could release? What would you want such a model to bring to the table? On my side, I'd hope for a mix of the high-end tech specs of today's most advanced handhelds and the optimization of the OG Steam Deck. A 120Hz OLED screen too, of course, but I feel like I'm lacking ambition here compared to what they want from the Steam Deck 2. Maybe an ARM processor would offer that generational leap, an NVIDIA processor. Oliver, love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of testing on Steam Deck recently for a Too Big for Steam Deck piece, covering a lot of games released in 2024. And I think there are a lot of issues with more recent software. But I also, in that piece, tested ROG Ally in turbo mode running under Bazzite. And indeed, the performance in a lot of the games that I tested was very playable on that device when they weren't so playable on the Steam Deck. So I think personally, a device that maybe comes closer to that kind of ROG Ally level with the Z1 Extreme in turbo mode might be pretty good, but at a more reasonable TDP. So that would imply like an 8-core CPU based on a more modern architecture, a bigger GPU, hopefully more memory bandwidth, hopefully RDNA 4 if we're just wish casting things here. I would like to see an RDNA 4 GPU with support for FSR4. That would obviously be very helpful. And then on the panel side of things, I'd hope for a 120Hz panel, in particular a VRR panel, because I find that very, very helpful in the ROG Ally in terms of just having games run at a consistent feeling performance level without actually needing to hit a locked 60 FPS or locked 40 FPS. That's often very hard in these handhelds, and oftentimes they're suffering from bigger variance in frame time that VRR really helps smooth out to some degree at least, without giving you too many stutters there. I'd also hope that it would retain maybe a lower resolution, maybe 700p, or maybe 720p rather, maybe 800p, hopefully not 1080p, and I can understand why they'd go for 1080p panel, but personally I like that lower resolution just to keep the GPU demands in check to a greater degree and make sure you don't have to do any like nasty spatial upscaling or anything like that after the fact. 2025 is a possibility for sure. Again, I'd be interested to see a new Steam Deck predominantly that can push well past the original Steam Deck in terms of performance. And I think that would imply maybe an RDNA 4 based Steam Deck. Maybe also something that has a little bit more flexibility in terms of the TDPs. Like I think that battery life is very good on the Steam Deck. Maybe if they had a Steam Deck with a more advanced APU and like a 20 watt TDP mode as an option, that might be a good level of configuration for users to have as well. So I think ultimately it comes down to just delivering a more high level of performance in a device like that. And then also a couple of other nice things to have would be like 32 gigabytes of RAM or 24 gigabytes of RAM, like an additional level of RAM just to let you play some games that really do struggle in terms of the RAM allotment. Here, that could be ameliorated to a significant degree with just a little bit more RAM.
Mm-hmm. John?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much echo what Oliver's saying there, but I don't really have much confidence in 2025 being the year for this yet either. No, I really don't see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a problem here. I mean, I did do a video on Strix Point based on a mini PC with power that went all the way up to like 64 watts. And the bottom line is that we still haven't seen what you would call a generational leap in performance versus RDNA 2 on the Steam Deck, which I think is quite astonishing because, you know, we've gone through several iterative bumps now. From AMD based on RDNA 2, you know, we've got from 2 to 3 to 3.5. We've seen them adding compute units, and you know, the bottom line is that we're always seemingly held back by memory bandwidth from mobile memory, you know, 128-bit interfaces, etc., etc. We've got the remarkable Strix Halo, which has come in a tablet form and is coming to desktops in the form of those framework things we saw earlier this week. And, you know, that seems to be like ultra high end. And, you know, it's still not really able to produce like PlayStation 5 level performance to the best of my knowledge. So, you know, it seems to me that we're seeing a succession of iterative bumps to graphics performance. And even on the CPU side, all of these PC handhelds have twice as many cores as the Steam Deck, and they're getting progressively better Ryzen architectures. But they don't seem to be offering huge generational leaps over what the Steam Deck does, which I think is quite astonishing for gameplay, that is, by the way.
I think it depends a lot on the game there. Like with the title like Space Marine 2, which is horribly CPU limited,
Right.
You can look at scenarios where the Rogue Ally is almost doubling the frame rate.
Okay, well, that's
it has
cool.
so much more CPU horsepower. So it definitely does depend on the game there. But certainly there are a lot of games that don't really take much advantage of a Zen 4 CPU with 8 cores relative to the Zen 2 CCD in the Steam Deck for sure. But yeah, it depends on the game, I would say.
And literally all of these new iterative bumps that have come since Steam Deck have required more power in order to actually make use of the extra silicon, which has been problematic. I think Valve are looking for a genuine successor to the Van Gogh processor. And there isn't one yet, and I don't see one on the roadmap for this year. All of the stuff you're talking about the makeup of the of a next generation Steam Deck, I agree with wholeheartedly. There was an interesting thing that came up this week, which was the leak of an actual improved version of the Steam Deck's APU. And it's fascinating where they're really sort of pushing CPU and GPU clocks higher. They've paired it with ultra fast memory, and I don't quite understand where that's going to go because it does seem to require more power. But I was thinking back to when I was reviewing the original Steam Deck, and there was actually the ability to increase TDP. On the early firmwares, but Valve were telling me it doesn't really do much for them. Maybe the combination of faster memory and more power does actually open up new opportunities, but I'm not sure what that chip is for. And Valve has actually come out to say there's not going to be a Steam Deck Pro based on this chip. So quite what this chip is actually for remains unknown. I don't know if you've heard about that, Oliver.
Yeah, I have. It's like a 20-watt chip with a 3.8 gigahertz boost clock on the CPU and 1.8 gigahertz on the GPU. So that's a pretty conservative set of upgrades. And then 853 megatransfers RAM speed, which would be a significant upgrade over Steam Deck, which I believe the OLED model has 6,400 megatransfers.
And we did, to be fair, we did see appreciable performance increases from that increased bandwidth.
That's true.
There. Yeah.
That's true. I would suspect it would be for a different device, like potentially something to do with VR. I'd also think maybe it could be something like the potential mooted console device, possibly, but it seems a little bit low power for that purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what it would be for, but it would be for a different project at Valve, I presume.
Yeah. Interesting.